Well, sometimes I look at a situation and I say, God knows how this is going to work. God knows how this is going to work out. And that is not a statement of exasperation. That is a statement of true knowing. God knows how this is going to work. The talk today is called Still Small Voice. And it is the observation or the reminder that there is an infinite intelligence that knows everything, that is everything, that shares itself as everything, and that is within. That divine presence is within me and each of us. And it's able and willing and continuously involved in communicating with us. It is revealing insights and information, guidance, and next steps at all times when we listen. And you have probably noticed that it is possible to get completely, what's the word that I'm thinking of, wrapped around the axle, figuring out how things are going to work in your life. And humans are actually really good at thinking. That's one of the things that we do particularly well. We pride ourselves on our ability to think and figure stuff out and use intuition and deductive reasoning and to take a set of facts and extrapolate and understand what next thing could be possible. We exercise our brains and our thinking, and we do really, really well. And that's a good thing. That's a wonderful way to be able to create stuff in the world. It's a wonderful way to be able to determine how we're going to pack our suitcase and what the logistics of our trip are going to be, or how to schedule a meeting, or something like that. It's really nice to be able to use our intellect and figure stuff out. And when that's all that we do, we are in so many, many ways limiting ourselves, because there are other possibilities that are available. That still small voice within is ready to provide us with guidance. And the most common way for us to turn to the infinite for that guidance is when we come to the end of our rope, the end of our path, the end of our understanding, and we have no idea what's next. And we say, God knows what's next. God knows how this is going to work. Not God knows what I'm supposed to do here. And at that point, we can go beyond all the stuff that we know up until now, all of the conscious awareness that we have up until now, and invite in something new. And the world around us is stimulus response. Something happens, we respond. We do something, somebody else responds. And it's that whole cause and effect of we cause something to happen, and then the effect is that thing happens, and then that causes something else to happen. And when we are thinking that is only exclusively happening on the physical Newtonian world around us level of our experience, we're missing the point. Sometimes we get into discussions with people about consciousness and awareness and self-awareness. And the discussion usually is, there's things like rights of animals. Like, do animals have consciousness? And the answer is yes, animals do have consciousness to an extent. And as we go, and I'm going to speak this arrogantly from the top of the food chain, as we go down the food chain, there's less and less consciousness necessarily that we find or understand or can determine to be operative. And consciousness is that connector point that we have with the infinite. Because there is one infinite consciousness, God, creator, spirit, nature, whatever it is that we want to call it. It is that one infinite consciousness that is aware of everything. And that one is sharing itself as all of its creation. Everything that exists is that one revealing itself in a different way. And that consciousness is always there. And here's the huge implication. I can point to people, you can probably point to people, and you can probably understand times in yourself where that consciousness has not been obvious, where the awareness of the consciousness, the awareness of that infinite intelligence is simply not present. And that's part of our freedom. We are free to be aware of our connection with the infinite at all times. And we are also free to live our entire life completely unaware of it, not caring about it, being, you want to call it unconscious, whatever, living in the world of stimulus response, where everything that I need to know, I need to figure out for myself. Everything is driven by my own ego awareness of how I can fit the pieces together, how I can organize things, how I can manipulate situations so that I can create the experience that I'm looking to have. I used to live that way. At this point, it was decades ago, but I know it's possible because I did. And I also know that it's possible to be aware of the bigger picture. And it would be nice to say that I am always completely aware of consciousness and go through my entire life and everything that's going on about my unfolding and know that that I'm always walking in spirit. And it doesn't happen. There are times when I forget. There are times when I get lost. There are times when somebody cuts me off in traffic and suddenly I forget everything that I used to know, just for the screaming or the salute. And there's also the reminder that it's possible to partner with that infinite consciousness, to be aware of that divine power and presence within, to allow that infinite creative power that creates everything to co-create something new with me next. I don't need to know how it's going to work, because God knows how it's going to work. And I can say that. God knows how this is going to work. And I am letting go of my attachment to how it's going to work. Now, when I do that, I sometimes have to let go of my ideas of timing, like when it's going to happen, or the specifics of how it's going to happen, what kind of a package it's going to show up in, with a big shiny bow on a particular occasion. When I partner with that infinite creative power that creates everything, I let go of my need to control the specifics of it. And I kind of get to go a little bit abstract. What is it that I am looking to have happen? What is that next new experience that I am looking to invite into life? And the more I can get into the tone and the flavor and the texture of the feeling of the what, and let go of the how, and allow that to simply happen, then the more that I can do that, the more flexibility that gives the infinite to be able to create something new and wonderful. So it's about saying that God knows how this is going to work, and then letting that infinite creative power that creates everything do its thing and allow that good to show up as the pause in the thunderstorm at exactly the perfect moment, as the conflict and the confrontation and the challenge that we're going to deal with because it needs to be dealt with, and they're not home. So we get to take the day off and do something else. Did my part, did my best, and whatever it is that needs to happen can happen, and we get to open ourselves up to the how of that happening. Now, we talk about the still small voice, and that actually is the way that the infinite communicates with us. And the first thing that we need to do in order to be aware of the still small voice is shut up. We need to be quiet enough that we're going to be able to hear the still small voice over the chatter. And I might be the only one here, but I find that my mind on occasion can be so filled with chatter that I can't hear the thoughts I'm actually trying to have, let alone the thoughts that Spirit is trying to share with me. So being able to quiet the chatter is huge. And you think, well, how do we do that? How in the world can you quiet the chatter in your mind? Well, you just do. Take a deep breath in and let go. And as you breathe out, let go of the chatter. Let it go do whatever it's going to do. And, if those little voices are going to keep talking, let them do it in a different room. Let them do it in somebody else's head. I don't need them right now. I'm going to breathe out. I'm going to let it go. Don't care where they're going. Don't care what's going on next. I'm going to breathe out and let it go. And as I get a little bit more of that quietness and a little bit more of that calm, I can do it again. I can take another deep breath in and breathe out one more time and let it go. Now, sometimes the voices are really insistent. Sometimes they're yelling and screaming, and it's like a committee in my head. They're making motions, and they're objecting to procedures, and there's somebody with a gavel, and there's somebody else who's yelling and screaming, and there's conversations. And sometimes I don't even know how I got into this meeting. These are not voices that are familiar. I mean, I know all the things that they're saying, but I don't give them any credence. And can you guys go have this meeting someplace else? Or sometimes when I have the presence of mind to realize that they're actually having the meeting in my mind, I can adjourn the meeting It's like, thank you for your input. I'm very grateful for your willingness to share and raise the alarm and warn me of all of these horrible things that might possibly happen. And you're dismissed, because I'm going to go and be peaceful for a little while and invite in a new idea. And that's when we can turn ourselves to inspiration, that still small voice. And that still small voice is always available to guide us in our next perfect steps, to give us that great idea, that aha moment. We've all had an intuition. We've all had that experience of thinking of something and just knowing this is right and having no idea where that idea came from. It just kind of showed up, and here it is, and now, it's something new to go with. Intuition is when that infinite mind, that divine mind of which we are part, shares something with us, and we don't know how it did that. We don't know how we learned whatever it was that we learned. We know something without knowing why we know it. When we know something and we know why we know it, that's called education. And education is also a good thing. Knowing things and knowing why we know them is very good. And knowing things and not knowing why we know them is also very good. And there's a third category. The third category is where we outsmart ourselves. And I've done this, and I know a lot of people who have done this, where we are wanting something new and different to happen. I'll speak this for myself, where I've wanted something new and different to happen, and I have had one of those inspired ideas. The pieces can fit together this way, and I can do that, they can do this, and that, and this will be perfect. This is absolute perfection. And it's like that still small voice is spoken from within. But in fact, it is my ego doing its impression of the still small voice. It is my monkey mind saying, hey, here's a way that we can manipulate the situation and maneuver the whole thing. And then, of course, when I go down that path, it turns out to be a challenge or a struggle or a failure, or it does not work the way that my divine intelligence suggested that it was going to work. And so I understand what you're saying. Yeah, okay, so we have intuition, but intuition can be misleading. So now what do you do? How do we deal with that? How do we deal with the fact that that still small voice might actually be something that I've concocted to undermine myself? I'm going to sabotage myself again. Resist. Resist. It is the most curious thing in the world. When the divine speaks to us in those quiet moments and suggests a new course of action, the next step, a perfect step for us to take, consider what happens if I don't take that step. Perhaps I'm going to not do what the infinite has suggested that I do. And not shut the whole process down, just say I'm not taking that step now. And I continue to open myself up to that divine guidance, to that insight and that new awareness. And in my experience, what happens is if that was my ego talking, then my ego will come up with a different idea. Another idea. Another way that the coyote can catch the roadrunner. And if in fact it was spirit speaking to me, it'll come back again. Maybe it's a different perspective on the same thing. Maybe it's a different way of understanding it, but it'll come back. It'll come back again. And I get to repeat the process. And it's not like I get to do it once a year. Like there's an annual thing where I get to be open to intuition and guidance. I can do it in every breath, in every moment. And so can you. The thing to do is to understand where we are now, breathe in all of the possibilities, and then let go. Breathe it out. And with that exhale, release all of the expectation, all of the judgment, all of the things that we know, everything that has worked really well for us up until now, in the same way that we are with our breath. You take in a breath, that's what your body needs right now. And in a matter of seconds, your body has used it up, and all that stuff is no longer any good. And what you need to do is take a deep breath out and let go of the spent, stale air and the toxins that have been moved into the respiratory system. It's time to let it go. The same thing happens in consciousness all the time. Same thing happens with our divine guidance all the time. We can breathe in something new, let go of what's old, and that, by the way, makes room for something new. So in those daily meditations, we spend a lot of time letting go of what has served us up until now so that we can make room for something new. Go ahead and take a deep, full breath in and hold it at the top. Now don't breathe out. Take in another deep, full breath. And you probably noticed that it didn't work. Okay, now a deep, full breath out. Let it go. And breathe out as deeply as you can. Clear out all the air. And notice that the depth of your exhale is what is controlling the capacity of your next inhale. Another deep, full breath in. We can do that intentionally. Keep breathing whatever pace is comfortable for you. We can do that consciously, or we can do it unconsciously. And the choice is always ours. We can step through life unconsciously, allowing that creative process that is unfolding to work in a way that's opaque to us. Because the way that we understand it, the truth is that everything begins in consciousness. Everything begins with an idea of a let there be, and whatever is going to be next. And that opens up to the new possibility, and that creative power that creates everything creates it. And that creative process works whether we're aware of it working or not, whether we're aware of working in consciousness and setting clear conscious intentions and activating the creative law, or if we're just wandering around in life, doing stuff, and seeing what happens next. Because the world of cause and effect, where we're talking about this cause being in consciousness and effect being in the world around us, we can misunderstand that the cause is the first thing that we do in the world around us, letting go of that conscious intent that it all began with, and just pay attention to the world around us. We can do that. We are free to do that, and we don't have to. So here's your invitation this week. Is choose. Choose the awareness of that still small voice. Choose to be aware of the guidance. Choose to let go of what's not working anymore on little tiny levels or on grand sweeping levels. Choose to be present with that still small voice. To be willing to go through the process and not just follow some harebrained scheme that your ego tries to inject into the dialogue. Open to that possibility. Work the process and invite in that good. And allow the love and the prosperity and the health and vitality and creativity and connection and love to unfold in your life. Because you deserve it. You deserve all that good and more. Because you are a bright light. And so it is.